Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session. Our webinar will begin in just a few minutes, and while you're waiting, please feel free to review our program information at csudh.edu/CEIE/global-logistics. Good morning and good afternoon. My name is Keith Otterberg, and I'm the Marketing Director for the College of Extended and International Education at California State University, Dominguez Hills. I'll be your host for today's presentation. Welcome. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on our website and social media platforms shortly after today's session. Please feel free to download the Global Logistics Certificate Information Kit for details about the program and additional resources that will be covered during the presentation. The address is bit.ly/CSUDH-GLX-InfoKit. We've provided a link in the chat panel for those who are participating live via Zoom. It will also be available via a follow-up email to attendees and on our website. Before we start, I'd like to review the Zoom controls. This session is being presented in webinar format, so you don't need to worry about your mic or camera. However, we want your participation, so help us by using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen if you're joining us via the Zoom desktop app or web browser, or in the top right of your screen if you're on the mobile device. Please ask your questions in the Q&A panel rather than in the chat panel. In the chat panel, we will be providing helpful links and other information. Once you click on the Q&A button, a dialog box will open up, allowing you to type in your question. Our marketing staff members, Stephanie Biukian and Anissa Barton-Thompson, are standing by to assist you. We'll be answering those questions at the end of the session. However, sometimes you may find that your questions are answered during the course of the presentation. With that being said, let's take a quick look at today's agenda. We'll begin by meeting our Global Logistics Certificate Instructor, who will discuss the current industry outlook and introduce you to the program via an overview of benefits, expectations, and course details. Then we'll go over registration and login information and address your questions in our Q&A sessions. And now to lead off our session, I'll turn it over to Duane Murphy. Duane, take it away.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Duane Murphy, and I have 30 plus years of global logistics experience in sales, global sales, operations, and regulatory compliance. I have a bachelor's of science in business administration at Cal State University, Long Beach. I also have a master's of arts in management at the University of Redlands. Currently, I am in sales operations for Maersk, and I'd like to consider myself somewhat of a logistics magician, able to show you and present to you that everything is logistics. Everything has a logistical component in business and in life. On your screen, you see a picture of the space station. Well, the space station is an experimental industrial platform because the future of manufacturing is in space for a lot of technical reasons. So someday the UPS driver will be piloting a shuttle and not just a truck. So this is an illustration of the future of logistics. It's a very exciting future. It's a very high-tech future, and one that I think is very exciting. Who should attend? Who is our target audience? And what type of professional background? Well, anyone who is in business. You don't have to be currently in transportation or logistics, but whether you're in the accounting department, the marketing department, sales, operations, uh, facilities management, you touch logistics. You touch global logistics. If you're an Amazon seller, you're in the global logistics business. So I will make those connections, and the information we provide with you over the courses will give you the tools needed to uh, to help you and help you be successful no matter what part of the business world you're participating in. The employment outlook, it's quite good. Most segments of the global logistics industry are hiring, even during the pandemic. Uh, for those of you looking to get into logistics, this certificate program will give you the basic skills. You will learn the language, you will learn the processes, you will learn the documentation requirements, and the government regulatory environment as well. For those of you already in logistics, I think this will help you build upon your current experiences. We may go over segments of global logistics and transportation you may not be as familiar with. Once again, regardless of what you're doing in the business world, you are in the logistics business directly or indirectly. And this program will give you the tools to be successful in that environment. So let's review the key topics we'll be discussing over the courses. The first one is globalization. We'll be discussing the global industrial cycle, which is simply the movement of the manufacturing of goods around the globe. Outsourcing, when manufacturers move their production to a particular country. Trade agreements, like the North American Free Trade Agreement. We will discussing what free trade agreements are, their impact on the global industrial cycle and outsourcing, their impact on the price of the goods, and any geopolitical implications there. And we'll also be going in depth on the global distribution model, which is the uh, supply chain model, or how goods, the model, how goods are distributed in the marketplace. We'll be discussing the transition from a push model to a pull model because of the inception of e-commerce platforms. Transportation, certainly a big part of our program. We'll be discussing in-depth importing and exporting networks and the import and export process. The importing and exporting class will teach you how to import and export. If you're looking on getting into the import export business, we will show you how to get started. We will show you the documentation, the regulatory process. We can help you get started there. We'll be discussing all the modes of transportation, air freight, ocean transportation, trucking, and e-commerce platforms, and how Amazon and other e-commerce companies are influencing these modes of transportation. We'll be discussing the legal aspect of global logistics, risk and liability, the risk of importing and exporting. What are the pitfalls? How to avoid them? And the liability. What is your carrier liable for? And what are you as a shipper or a receiver of goods liable for? Pricing structures. The different modes of transportation have very different pricing structures, and we will go over all of them in depth. Domestic final mile networks, delivery networks. You see a photograph of Amazon trucks. Companies like Amazon and even the big retailers are all involved in e-commerce platforms, and they are drastically changing how your goods are delivered. And they have a huge impact on what UPS and FedEx will be doing in the future. So this is a revolution that's going on in transportation right now. And the days of just simply delivering product are over. It's a more complex process. It's a very high-tech process as well. Regulatory compliance. We'll be going over in depth the customs brokerage and customs clearance process, how to get your goods and bring your goods in and out of the United States and other countries legally. We will be going over and reviewing the documentation requirements, and we specifically go over all the necessary and fundamental documentation for international shipping. Global security, certainly some major changes there since 9/11. And we'll be reviewing the global security programs in place, processes, the additional expenses, and the goals of those processes. Taxation. Again, this is a global logistics course. So taxation is a big indicator and a big component on how companies and manufacturers and countries behave. So we'll be talking about how countries' taxation on income, on inventory, on production influences outsourcing and influences global supply chains and distribution models. Tariffs and duty. So when goods enter or leave a particular country, they are subject to tariffs and duty and certain taxes. We'll be going over what these taxes are, how they influence buying and selling behavior, and how they influence where our goods are manufactured, thus influencing and creating new distribution models. Government regulation. Our industry is heavily regulated for safety, primarily, and these are regulations that are very important for those of you wanting to get into particularly even ground transportation, trucking transportation. So we review and talk about the major regulatory bodies here in the United States: the Department of Transportation, the Federal Motor Carrier Commission, and other major regulatory departments of the U.S. government. Technology. when people think of the global logistics industry, transportation in general, they don't think of it as a high technology industry. It is. This is a very high tech industry. So for those of you interested in technology, computer technology, manufacturing technology, uh, industrial engineering technology, this is a good industry for you. So when we talk about technology, we talk about the basic technology of tracking with barcode scanning, that kind of thing. Um, and in warehousing and distribution, which we will cover in depth, high technology is being used there uh, on a daily basis. Uh, Computer scanning, algorithms on how to uh, store goods and cargo. Drone technology is being used in warehouse and distribution. So there's a lot of exciting things going on there. E-commerce, certainly no need for a big explanation here. Amazon, uh, and obviously what the internet has done for e-commerce platforms. So very exciting there, and we take a look at that. Also equipment. The trucks, the airplanes, they may all look the same, but they're very different. So when we talk about technology in our industry, I also review how the equipment is changing and how our materials are changing, composites, ceramics, plastics, that kind of thing, which make our industry more efficient, use less fossil fuels, that kind of thing. And lastly, computer hardware and software. Um, Companies like Maersk and UPS and FedEx are using very advanced technologies like artificial intelligence um, for uh, proactive notification, predictive analysis, trying to see what's going to happen before it happens using historical data and algorithms, and also some new and exciting technologies that UPS and FedEx are on the forefront of, and that's a blockchain technology, which is secure uh, block storage and secure storage of data in the supply chain, in the cloud, and also computer technology. Um, we don't really think about it that much, but we're about to enter a new phase and what I think is going to be a very revolutionary change in the computer hardware with what's called quantum computing. So we're entering an era that computers are going to be twice as fast, and that speed is going to help the transportation industry and global logistics get more efficient, uh, predict bottlenecks, predict delays, that kind of thing, routings. So there's an awful lot of things happening with technology in the logistics uh, industry, and we'll be discussing this in depth. The Global Logistics Certificate courses. 900 is the Introduction to Logistics, where we talk about the global industrial cycle, outsourcing, and we do the 30,000 foot overview of the logistics industry, where it's been and where it's going. 901, importing and exporting. As we mentioned before, we will get into all the process and the mechanics of importing and exporting. 902, global logistics. We will continue our discussion on global logistics processes like customs clearance, those types of things. 903, transportation management and physical distribution. This is where we have an extensive conversations regarding the U.S. trucking industry, the final mile, e-commerce platforms, and third-party logistics. 904, the financial instruments of international trade. So how businesses and large corporations finance their importing and exporting transactions. And we go over the major and the most popular instruments on how that is done. And not only for large companies, but for also small companies, for those of you thinking about starting your own international import-export business. And then finally, 905, hazardous materials. We review how to identify hazardous materials, fill out the hazardous paperwork, which is required by the Department of Commerce, and go over safety protocols and just a general overview of how to deal with hazardous materials and ship them safely. The text is a book called Transportation: A Global Supply Chain Perspective by Cole Novak Gibson, the 8th edition. There is a 7th and a 9th edition. All of these editions are acceptable depending on where you're looking to purchase the books. Features and benefits of the program. So, as I mentioned before, we went over the features, all the different topics we're going to discuss in depth. The modes of transportation, customs clearance, importing and exporting, trucking, third-party logistics, all these different types of things we're going to be reviewing. So what this program is going to give you is a solid foundation. You're going to be able to take the information that you learn, and you're going to be able to apply it immediately to your business. For those of you in transportation and global logistics, you'll be able to use this information day one. For those of you trying to enter the global logistics business, you will be able to speak the language of global logistics. So when you're interviewing for a position, you'll be able to speak their language. You'll be able to demonstrate in an interview that you are educated and you can hit the ground running. And that's what employers are looking for. They're looking for people who have a good base of knowledge so they can spend less time and effort on training, and they want people that have the basic knowledge and skills. This course will give you that.
Thank you very much, Duane, for that great overview of the program. And we're going to come back to you in a moment for our Q&A segment. But first, let's look at the course registration and delivery details. Global logistics courses are taught on Saturdays in a live online format. The complete schedule will be in the information packet that will be available after the webinar. To enroll, you would call our registration office at 310-243-3741, option 1. They are available during business hours, Monday through Friday, and on Saturdays, 9 to 1. If you've taken a course at Dominguez Hills in the past 2 years, you may register online using your my.csudh.edu account. We highly recommend that you register early to make sure that there's your spot in the course and to allow enough time for course information and online access information to be created and distributed to you. Payment is due at the time of registration, but you can pay for courses individually, one at a time, or you can pay for all the courses at once. The program is available for funding through the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, which provides funding through the Employment Development Department. If you think you might be qualified for this program, please contact our specialist at wioa@csudh.edu for information on that program. You can also Google private student loan providers or connect with salliemay.com for student loan details for this program. Again, we remind you that you register at least 1 week before the course begins and check your Toro mail and personal emails frequently for special instructions and campus notifications. You'll also want to be sure to test your account access in Blackboard, which is our learning management system platform, and get comfortable with the layout of the class, such as where to find announcements, Zoom meeting schedules, discussions, and the like. Now let's do some questions with our instructor, Duane. Again, we ask that you use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to ask any questions. So we have one question so far from Hope. Hope says that I'm in HR at a logistics and transportation company, and we're trying to have some of our employees take this program. Will these courses be good for our employees who have 10 plus years of experience? For which experience levels do you recommend this program?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the question, Hope. Very good question. I believe that this course has something for everyone. I have had many, many students who have had 10 plus, 20 plus years of experience. And as you well know, even though many of you and many of us have a lot of experience in global logistics, we may not have experience in a certain area. For example, I've had air freight people who didn't have a lot of experience in trucking or third party distribution. Let's take my own career. I started my career in air freight and I got into ocean freight later on in my career. So I had a good working knowledge of it, but certainly not the knowledge I have now. So I would certainly recommend to your employees that if they're looking to expand their knowledge and get a refresher course, if you will, in areas of logistics they have experience in, like air freight, because the industry is always changing. It's not static. So, uh, what I tell people, hey, Duane, I've been in the business 20 years. You can still learn because I try to do my best to stay up to date in the industry. We go over what's currently happening in many facets of the industry. So everything we're going to discuss and everything I reviewed earlier, I take the approach of dealing with what's going on today. So, for example, how Amazon has changed the small package and trucking industry here in the United States, and it's rapidly changing the third-party logistics business. So, for your coworkers and employees who are involved in these aspects of domestic transportation, I can get them up to speed on what's going on. And everyone in business is impacted by e-commerce. So uh, I certainly think that this course will benefit your employees of what's happening now and what is going to be happening in the future.
Terrific. Thanks. Let's go over a few questions that we get asked frequently. The first is always, how do I get hired into this industry when I have no experience?
Well, transportation companies, logistics companies, third-party logistics companies, especially, are hiring right now. And some companies are willing to hire people without experience in the industry. That's the great thing about this course. And as I mentioned before, this course will give you a running start. This course will give you the knowledge so you'll be able to understand what employers want. You'll be able to speak the language. And I think this will give you a good leg up. A couple examples. Recently, some of my students have been placed and interviewed with companies like UPS and FedEx and Amazon, and they have written me emails saying that this course helped them. So I do have students that reach out to me and let me know that when they've gone on interviews because of what they learned in this course, they understood what the employer was looking for. And I think that's half the battle, because we don't want to walk into an interview feeling that we don't have the knowledge. That goes without saying. But it also helps that we can understand what the employer is saying and what they're looking for, so it's a match, right? So you understand what they want. And if they hire you, and before you walk in on the first day, you have a good understanding of what their expectations are and what their goals are for you, your employment there is going to be a lot better than going in sort of blind, if you will.
Okay, great. Cynthia, I hope that answers your question. This program will help you if you're just getting started in the industry. So the next question is there homework? Are there any assigned class projects?
All of the projects, everything we work on is in class. We have case studies that we work on in class. If a student is absent for a class, then I will assign a homework assignment, if you will.
Okay. And what happens if somebody has a schedule conflict on the day of a class?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Because we do everything in class, I strongly urge everyone, whenever possible, not to miss a class. If you do miss a class, then reach out to me, and I will discuss with you what we went over in class, and I will give you an assignment to complete that will keep you up to date on what we discussed that day.
Okay, great. Next question, again, for people getting started. How do they connect with people in this industry?
That's a great question. Very good question, because networking is a big part of any industry, right? So one thing I recommend for those of you who are not in the industry and trying to get in, I would start by just sending resumes out, right? What's a better way to network than reaching out to employers? So there's certainly, obviously, Indeed, Career Builder. There's another website called jobsandlogistics.com. Check with if you have friends in the industry. If you want to take a part-time job with FedEx or UPS to see if you like it, get a taste of it. And then there are other organizations. There's the Foreign Trade Association. There are other air freight and freight forwarding associations in Los Angeles that I think they used to have open mixers and events open to people to network. So, but again, what I would do if I was switching industries tomorrow and I didn't know people in the industry, I would start by getting my feet wet, sending out resumes, and start talking to employers to figure out what their needs are, what their expectations are. And piggybacking on my last question about people getting started, is that when I interview with companies, I find out what they expect me to know and what they're willing to train me and how they're willing to train me.
Great. And to that end, I want to point out that Dominguez Hills has two social networking sites, a global logistics and supply chain Facebook page, as well as LinkedIn group. So those are places that you can network as well. And that brings me to another question, and that is, we have a supply chain management certificate. So if you could just briefly explain what's the difference between global logistics and supply chain management.
Sure. And thank you for that, Keith. Yeah. How can I forget social media? So social media, obviously a very powerful networking platform. Okay. So this course, I concentrate on transportation and global logistics and transportation models, modes of transportation, and all the related processes. Supply chain management goes further, right? It goes into things that I do not touch, like procurement, goes more in depth on some analytics and more of the procurement aspect of it, and buying and selling, that kind of thing. So this course, most of it concentrates on transportation and related subject matter.
Very good. Okay. We have another question from the audience, from Brandon. He says, I have recently started an independent dispatch service. Would the certificate program benefit me in dispatching?
Sure. Because if and I'm assuming you're dispatching courier and trucking or small courier. Yes, because the principles that we're going to learn and the principles that I'm going to show you apply to all modes of transportation. So, and that's the beauty of transportation. The principles, the basic principles that apply to air freight, most of them will apply to trucking. Okay. So yes, I firmly believe that any knowledge in global logistics will help what you're doing, what your niche in transportation is. So your niche is dispatching. Well, my course, will expand your knowledge, which can help you with your courier business or lead to other opportunities and lead to how you can expand your business in other modes of transportation or other services.
Great. Okay. Let's see. We don't have any questions in the Q&A right now, so I'm going to answer a few sort of logistical questions. What kind of certificate do I get? Well, you will get 2 certificates, actually. You will get an electronic certificate that you can share on social media and post on your LinkedIn profile. And that will show people right away who are searching for people with these skills that you have these skills. And then you will also get, should you request it, you will also get a paper certificate that you can hang on the wall. So it's good background for when you do these Zoom calls. How much does the program cost? All 6 courses together cost $1,190. But again, you can register for 1 course at a time if that helps you to spread out the payments. Books, it's around $340 for the textbook. So those are the only 2 costs you have. Of course, we conduct the program via Zoom, so you will need a computer with a good internet connection so that you can take part in the courses. Another question is, how long do I have to complete the full global logistics program? We recommend that you complete it within 2 years because the information changes, but you can complete it in as little as I think it's 3 or 4 months that the courses run. So again, you'll want to do the courses as quickly as you can because the information changes and you want to stay up to date. So if we don't have any other questions, oh, sorry, there is one more question. It says, I am new to the industry. Should I take supply chain management? I see the supply chain management program in advance of this program.
Well, I think that depends on what your goals are. If you're new to the transportation industry and your job and your work life is concentrated in transportation, then I would recommend taking this course. If you're more in purchasing and inventory management, then the supply chain may be more useful because, I touch on a little bit of inventory. But again, this class is about transportation and importing and exporting, which even in the importing and exporting class, we concentrate on the transportation portion of it. But we do go over the marketing and choosing your product and that kind of thing. So I think it depends on what your goals are and what you're looking for an educational experience to achieve for you.
Okay. We have another question in the Q&A. Is it mandatory to purchase the textbook? And do we know if there's ebooks available that might be a little less expensive?
I do. The text is not mandatory, but you can rent the book. You can get used copies on Amazon. So I would recommend looking through the internet. Obviously, the full price of the book is not cheap, but I have students who have rented the book for a reasonable price, bought used ones. But if there is a financial challenge, don't worry about it.
Okay. Another question that's come in, given the pandemic and now sort of a crush of imports into the ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles. We're hearing about backed up ships, and we're also hearing about empty ships going back the other way. Can you tell us a little bit about the what's going on in the industry right now through the ports of LA and Long Beach.
Sure. And before I do that, this question illustrates how I operate my class. My class, I built this class to be current, using what I've learned, using what is standard practices, and connecting it to what's going on today. So this class is going to connect you with the ideas, with what's happening in the industry. So I wanted to make that clear. You're exactly right. The ports are crowded. They're overflowing. There's additional demurrage, detention fees. It's very expensive. There aren't enough trucks to pull the containers out of the port. It's not going away anytime soon. And we do address this in the first class, how COVID has impacted the global industrial cycle, our supply chains, shortages. If you're trying to buy a new car today, there's a shortage of microchips that go in the car. So used cars prices are up 20, 30%. So the impact of the global supply chain has had a huge impact on other industries, like automobiles. I just moved and I bought some furniture, and the furniture is not going to be ready until December. And I asked why, and they said we can't get the foam from China quick enough because they're back ordered on the foam that goes into cushioning. So
Wow.
this has a tremendous impact on what we're doing. But as far as the ports are concerned, and if you're involved in importing and utilizing the port facilities, there's no end in sight. The congestion, from everything I've heard, is going to continue through the second quarter of next year. So this is where companies and importers, have to have the right relationships with their suppliers to get these orders filled as quickly as possible. But there's no magic pill here. And we are going to be talking a lot about current events in this class. And again, I tried my best to make the connection of what's going on today. And we do talk about the history a little bit of transportation, but we do take the principles and the ideas that I teach and apply them to what's going on now, whether it's the Port of Los Angeles or the port in Amsterdam or what's going on in Vietnam right now. So a tremendous impact. I wish I could tell you it's going to go away anytime soon, but it does have an impact. And one other thing I wanted to say is that somebody asked what we do in class. I encourage all students to bring their problems, their issues of their workplace to class, and we can discuss them and maybe come up with solutions. Okay, because many of my students, most of my students are already in transportation, and they have issues. And I do my best to see if we can find solutions. And again, I think it's a good learning experience for other people who may or may not be having those issues. And also, it serves two purposes. One, we all learn something, even myself. And two, we can help solve a problem.
Terrific. And along those lines, somebody had asked if I'm a longshoreman, will this help my career?
Well, again, it depends on what your goals are. If you're a longshoreman and you want to learn more about the ocean business and drayage and how ports operate, sure, we go over that. Absolutely. And if you're a longshoreman who's thinking about doing other things or doing something else in global logistics part-time, sure, I highly recommend it. And again, I'm biased, right, because I teach the class, but I believe there's something for everybody in the global logistics and transportation business.
Okay. We got another question in from Orapin. Says, I work in a shipping line in Thailand for 9 years, and I wish I could take this course, but I live in New York City. Do you know of another school? Well, Orapin, the course is online and it's conducted on Saturdays. So if you're in New York City, it would be conducted from about 12 to 7 on Saturday afternoons. So if you can make that schedule online, then you can take the program. I'm not going to recommend other schools because there are competitors, but I'm sure there's many fine schools out there. Okay, I think we've come to the end of questions. So right now I'm going to just talk about the next steps. When you're ready to register, please call us at 310-243-3741, option 1. If you're in the US, you can also call a toll-free number that's 877-GO-HILLS, and then that connects you to the same line, and then press option 1. And if you've recently been a student at CSUDH within the past 2 years, you can log into your My CSUDH portal to register for courses online. We've covered a great deal of information on this webinar. So if you have some questions for us, please contact us. You can reach us at in the email learn@csudh.edu or on the phone at 310-243-2075. Also, if you get onto our website during business hours, there's a chat function, so you can chat with us and get information that way. So all sorts of ways to connect with us. So this concludes our session for today. Thank you very much for joining us. We'd love to get your feedback on how today's session went. If you could visit bit.ly/CSUDH-webinar-feedback, the link's in the chat. You can fill out a short survey and tell us how we did. We'd really appreciate it if you did. Again, feel free to connect with us on our website, by email and phone, on our Facebook page or LinkedIn group. And remember to register early to get your spot in the classes that you want. We'll stay in the session for just a few minutes to give everyone time to jot down last-minute notes or download the information kit from the chat panel. The recording for this session will be online shortly on our website and linked via social media. When you're ready to leave, simply click the red Leave button at the bottom of the screen. Again, thank you for joining us. Stay safe, and we look forward to seeing you in class.